Today on Legacy Event Pros, we talk to Tracy Claiborne from Ohio Wedding Shows. We talk about what a wedding show is, how to navigate a wedding show, and how to get the most out of your wedding show experience. You don't want to miss it. So we have Tracy Claiborne from Claiborne Productions. Thank you so much for joining us today on Legacy Event Pros podcast. Welcome. It's first one, right?
Yes, first one. Yeah, thanks for having me.
And I don't think it has anything to do with we've been working together for 15 or so years that you are on the first podcast, because I know that you are not you're not into technology the way some people are. So I appreciate it so much for coming on. But I think it's super duper important. I really do. And so that's why I wanted to have you on. And we have another wedding show coming up here next week, right? Next weekend?
Yes, or this weekend.
This weekend.
April 18th, yeah, in Cincinnati.
Tell me a little bit about that. Actually, let's start with just Claiborne Productions, Ohio Wedding Shows. Tell me a little about the background, a little about you. You know, with Legacy Event Group, we all have DJ names, and I'm DJ Oz because I'm like behind the scenes, like the person that's behind the curtain. But Claiborne Productions, you guys have been behind the curtain on the best wedding shows in the entire tri-state area for a very long time. So tell me about you, tell me about your company, tell me about how you got into this.
Sure. Yeah, when I graduated from college, I have a marketing degree, and I started working with my dad, and he does career expos. He did job fairs all over. We did them in Canada, all over the United States. Now, it was for the technical industry, so it was like engineering, software, computer science. Okay. So I worked for him for about 10 years, and he sold his company. Then I got married, was pregnant. I wanted to do something from home. So actually, I love to bake. So I started making wedding cakes. And I started doing that, and I was in Dayton, Ohio at the time, and I was looking for a wedding show to go to promote my wedding cakes. So I called the producer that was here, the largest one, and I just got off the phone, and I was like, that's it. That's all I have as far as a show, because the website wasn't up to date. His sales tactics were not the best. And so I was like, I'm going to do a bridal show. So because I have all the experience, it's, very similar to doing the job fairs. I managed that I did the sales, I managed the office. So that's how I got started. Did my first one in Dayton at the Dayton Marriott. Did you
do a wedding show before you actually started? Just out of curiosity.
I did not.
Oh.
I did not. I didn't go to any, but I researched them just on the internet. I looked at all over. I looked at every city I would go, and I'd look at their websites, and it's a trade show. It was very, very similar to what I had, done. So I was very familiar with how to do it.
I just wanted to know if you felt the fear that we feel as vendors sometimes when you're like, what do I set up and how do I set up? And if I put this chair here, will anyone book my services?
Right.
You have that like internal fear as a wedding vendor, because there's, it's almost like golf. It's all riding on that one show, that 1 4 hour, or 6 hour time spot. So There's a lot riding. So,
the biggest fear was, I was in sales, so it's calling the vendors and them not knowing who are you? Have you done a show before? And why should we come to your show? There's already a show. So that was the hardest part. And the hardest part was convincing them that, I've had experience doing these before. I feel I can do a better job. And then once you have a show and you prove it to them, then they'll continue to come back. So that was the hardest part, though. Calling all the vendors.
Well, we were just talking before the podcast started, and in this area, a wedding show is a wedding show, but a Claiborne show is the shows that you guys put on. So it's like that name is attached to a great wedding show now. So it's hand in hand with a successful wedding show. So I mean, kudos for everything. Do you still bake? Just out of curiosity.
We bake all the time.
Okay.
My daughters and I wasn't a good decorator. I could bake a cake, but I was not good at decorating. So, but yeah, we still love to bake.
It's funny you say that. I often say to the DJs and stuff, I am not the best DJ. Like when it comes to like mixing music and like scratching and like transitions, there are far better DJs than. But when it comes to a wedding, I can do a wedding. You know, the logistics of back end, the planning, the preparation, all the thing it takes to have good entertainment. But
right,
I'm not the best DJ. So
yeah.
So you've been doing these for how long? I don't know.
So it's been 17 years now. So we started in Dayton, and then we expanded actually into Columbus, and then we started doing them in Cincinnati. And we did a couple in Cleveland also, but primarily we're in Dayton, Cincinnati, and Columbus right now. And we do about 3 to 4 in Dayton, about 3 in Columbus, and about 2 in Cincinnati each year.
And how do you decide when they are? How do you decide like the location? I know has changed, and I know that there's pros and cons to every location. But how do you decide the when? I was curious about that.
Well, the when, basically the winter ones we have because we'll have them in January or February because you're following the holidays. So that's the biggest time when people get engaged. And most engagements are over the holidays. So they're anxious. They want to come to a show. They want to start planning. And then the vendors aren't as busy either in January or February. So it's a good time for them to get out and do some marketing. And then really you can have a wedding show any month now. It's I'd say winter's the best. And then after that, it's a matter of the vendors need business, and they need business all the time, and they're always trying to be ahead of the game. So, you can have them every month. I see them in other cities, but we tend to do winter, and then we'll do like later in the summer.
Okay.
Because fall is a busy time for the vendors too. So we kind of try to, make it so we're hitting it right before that fall season.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
When it comes to I know that there's a lot of studies out there, and each industry is different. Each region is different too. But we find that at certain times, so when clients book services is kind of on a schedule of, most of the time it's the dress first, and then sometimes it's the venue next, and so on and so forth. So I think what we find is a lot of people who are gathering information, like in the wedding shows, because they just got engaged. I'm sorry, the winter shows, because they just got engaged and they're looking for, the dress first, and they're trying to like focus on one thing at a time, or, a couple of things at a time. And then on into the March events, we get more kind of like, I need a DJ now,
Right.
So I think it's kind of beneficial for everyone, but people definitely have different schedules when they come in. And I think that having a show the way that you guys do is beneficial, I think, for everyone. So
yeah, definitely. And they say too, like you were saying, you go to a winter show, they see you, right? And you might not be on their radar first, and then they see you again in March, and they remember you, and oh yeah, I remember I did like them, and now I want. So yeah, it's that repetition too, of them seeing you over and over. I have a lot of vendors, the ones that go with us on a regular basis. They say that's really, really important that they see them over and over again.
Yeah. And I mean, we're going to be talking mostly about the client experience, but just from like a vendor side of things. I mean, the success of a wedding show is not like right then. I mean, we have people that months and months and months later are like, yeah, I saw you at a wedding show. And we're like, I haven't done a wedding show in like 4 months. And you're like, no, I saw you at this one. And you're like, oh yeah. So it's the gift that keeps on giving. You just have to look at it like the exposure is just something that we sometimes people call and they're like, hey, do you want to put up a billboard on this fence, or do you want to like sponsor this bench? And I'm like, how many people that are getting married are going to pass that bench?
Right.
How many people getting married are coming to a wedding show?
Exactly.
Every one of them, or at least every one of them is interested in collecting stuff. So, I mean, there's just no way to get that laser focused attention,
Right.
Except for at a wedding show. So,
and that's a great point. I get new vendors that attend. They hear it. I'll hear that. Well, I didn't book anything at the show, or I didn't. So yeah, it's a learning experience. On the vendor's side as well. And then I'll have brand new vendors that will attend one, and they're like, yeah, it took me two or three shows before I finally realized how beneficial this is. And, then started getting the bookings because they attended multiple shows.
Yeah. And, some of my best friends I've made at wedding shows, I mean, with the vendors, because, when we're at a wedding, we're kind of, hustling all the time, and not saying that we, are not working together. But the wedding shows are a time where we have a couple that we talk to, and then we'll go over and we'll like talk a little bit, and then we'll like, hey, we're going to go eat afterwards. Say, hey, we're going to grab drinks. So I mean, some of my best friends we've met at wedding shows and done some, after party.
Oh yeah, and just the importance of that I put that on our marketing information, that networking with other vendors, because then you're going to refer each other.
Yeah.
If you have a date that's booked, full, and you're best friends with, some of the other vendors there, then you refer each other. And I have vendors that want to be next, there's 5 of us and we all want to be by each other because we're together, which I think it's great. I think it's really good when they work well together like that. But that's another thing. If you're brand new, come to a wedding show, meet all these other vendors who have been in the business for so many years, and it's very beneficial.
We the last show that we were at, we have an iPad setting out for couples to kind of look at our services and put in information if they want to, lock in a discount. And we wanted to kind of keep it because of the social distancing and everything. We wanted to keep it sanitary. So I meant to purchase like pens with the little stylus thing on them, and I just forgot. And so when we got to the wedding show, Mika from the Windermere was she was the booth next to us, but there was a little aisle, and she had styluses, and then Brian from BLC Lighting had styluses. So I went and I said, I really like the styluses. And he was like, you want some for your booth? And Mika, I think, supplied our booth the entire time with styluses.
Oh, nice. See?
But you work with vendors and you work well with them, and I just that's what it's all about. That's what it's all about.
Exactly.
So as I'm getting married, I'm walking into let's just start when you are going to a wedding show. What's the expectation of a wedding show? Wedding shows are different. So speak specifically about the Ohio wedding shows, but what's the expectation of a wedding show from a client's side of things?
I think the expectation is that they are going to actually meet the vendors face to face, and then also see things up close, see the products, see the services, be able to even experience them. If it's a photo booth, they can, get to go in and take some pictures. If it's a wedding cake vendor, they're going to get a sample. They're going to see cakes there up close. So, you see stuff on Instagram, you see it, but it's not the same as seeing it in person and up close. And then having the vendor there to actually answer questions for you that you might have, say, well, I really like this style of cake. And then that vendor can say, it's beautiful, and this is the most expensive cake. And then give them an idea, but this one over here, similar, however, the cost. So just that interaction, that face-to-face, and seeing things in person. And I think they get very excited when they're there and inspired.
Okay. So that's what the client's going to get out of it. The ability to talk to vendors and things like that, make choices. What do they when you walk in, what's it like?
When you walk in, and right now, the way we have it, everybody has to pre-register. So basically they're registered, so they'll come in, they'll be greeted. We have a registration desk, and they're going to get a list of all the vendors that are there by category, and we give away door prizes, so they're going to get like a number for door prizes, and then they can go in and they can walk around freely, and talk to the vendors. Usually there's a couple different rooms that they go into, but yeah, it's pretty simple. We try to get them in as quickly as possible so they don't have to wait in line, for a long time. Mm-hmm. And then I always tell people too, like, you don't have to follow a line. You don't have to stay in, go where nobody is and start. if you're looking for something specific, look at your list and say, oh, here's the photographers, kind of glance over it, and then, go in and hit those different vendors. But yeah, I always recommend to start in the back or start where nobody is, because it just makes it easier for you when you're there. But sometimes people just feel like they're missing out if they're not in a line. So it's a hard thing to overcome, because they think, what did I miss? Like, you won't miss anything. You can hit everything.
Sometimes when couples are going there are vendors that have different outlooks on how to engage with clients at wedding shows. So some are, more, when it comes to people walking by, they're more engaging than others. And mm-hmm. So sometimes I think people walking by, if you don't follow the line, you kind of get mad more than once. Like,
right.
You go, what? No, I already talked to you. Wait.
Yeah.
So there's definitely that.
Yeah. That can be hard.
So it sounds like, and I mean, when we're talking about a wedding show, we're talking 50 to, the ones that we did at the Nutter Center, and it was around 100, I think, were.
Yeah, we get it.
So you're talking about a lot of vendors, a lot of, rows to go down, or,
right.
rooms. So is preparation something that is needed? Do you have to get ready for it?
I mean, I recommend it, and we, have it on our website and the information we send out when we're marketing. Yeah, I always think it's good to know, well, what do we have as far as, do we have our venue? Do I have my dress? What do I need? Do I need a DJ? Do I need a photographer? Do I need everything? And then if you need everything, kind of, well, what's the priority? What do I want to really talk to when I'm here? And then start with that, and then, go to the other ones and mark it down on your sheet where we list the vendors, so that you kind of know who you've talked to, and you can make little notes on there as well of who you liked. And I never think it's bad either. If you like a vendor, you like their booth, and you want to remember them, take a picture with your phone, so that you kind of are like, yeah, I really like this one. I want to remember them. And I just put their card in my bag with all the others. So I'm not going to take a picture. And the vendors will like that too, I think.
Yeah. Well, I mean, especially we do a lot to make sure that our booths are looking good. I mean,
yeah.
I know it's different for each vendor, but we try to change our booth well, you actually complimented on us on our booth for the last mm-hmm. time, as far as like mixing it up and doing something different. Right. We spend a lot of time designing it, and then at least an hour or two setting it up for the show. So taking a picture, it would be an honor for me.
Right. And I'm blown away every time we have a show. I'm blown away at the amount of work the vendors put into their booths, which I think is great. And I know that the brides and grooms love that too. It's, very inspiring to them, and it does make you stand out. Mm-hmm. The more creative you can be with your booth and different things you can do, it definitely helps.
Yeah. And you there's like trends too that we see, like, a couple years ago when we were at the Dayton Convention Center and stuff, it was like, how high could you go? So we started going higher and higher. And then I think the estate at Sunset Farms kind of like cornered that, because they have this like 20 foot by,
Yes.
I don't even know how tall it is, but it's huge. Just
I remember that.
Like you're walking into their venue and everybody was like, okay, they've got the crown for that one. Let's move on
Yes.
to something else. So,
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, there's always different trends and people are always, trying to outdo one another, which again, it's great because it just makes everybody look better when they're at the show.
So what's your feeling? So you had said that, you suggest that couples have kind of a focus on, if I'm looking for a photographer, if I'm looking for a venue, this is where. When do you suggest they kind of, because I know floor plan wise, you don't want to put all the DJs together. You don't want to put all the venues together.
Right.
We start like a chair fight or like a riot or something like that, all being together. But it almost feels like if you're looking for a photographer, one thing to consider is maybe just go photographer to photographer to photographer, because if not, you're going to be bombarded in the middle with, well, I'm not ready for a cake, but I tasted this cake and I really like this cake. And now you're off on the cake, train. And then you kind of, I don't want to say forgotten, but it's not as fresh in your mind. So would it be something would it be an outside of the box thought to go, if I'm going for photographers, I'm just going to go photographer.
No, I think if that's one of your priorities, that's what I would do. I would search out the photographers and I would go look at, talk to each one of them, look at the samples that they have. I mean, that's what I think would be, if you're really, really looking, and then say, okay, we did what, and then walk around and see the other vendors. Obviously you might see something when you're going down and you're like, well, I want to see this. And again, it just depends on how much time you have too. Because that's the thing I've noticed too at the bridal shows. I feel like the brides and grooms just sometimes don't want to spend the time they really need to spend when they're there. And I wish they would stay longer. I feel like they rush in, they rush out, and there's just so much there that can really help them. I wish they'd stay longer. That's what I need to come up with, is a way for them to stay. But we do fashion shows, and sometimes that, and a grand prize. So sometimes that keeps them there so that they stay longer.
Yeah, that's fair. And I think from a vendor side of things, I would agree that very rarely has anyone ever come back to the booth like a second or third time.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes they come back and they're like, okay, you're the one I want to book. But never to come back and go, hey, I asked, this DJ said this, do you offer this? And, like a back and forth, we used to do that at trade shows. We used to go to technology trade shows and we would like do a pass through of everyone and like see who had what. And then if it was something that we were interested in, we would go back to those booths a couple times. Like, okay, they said they have this. What do you have? Okay, they said, because you're never going to be able to get it all. I think spending more time at the show and kind of, following up, I think that's a great suggestion that I think would be very beneficial for couples.
Yeah. And again, too, if like right now, the shows, I feel like because of COVID, there's still vendors that are fearful. They don't want to come out yet. So like our shows are smaller vendor wise. However, the brides are having better conversations with the vendors when they're there. And the vendors are, I think, feeling the same way. And it's almost like they're thinking, this is nice. So don't shy away from a smaller show either. Like if, say some people will go to the Nutter Center. It's like 100. Oh, there's 100 vendors. It's huge. It's big. It's great. And then we'll have a smaller show and they might, oh, we only have that many. But you don't realize sometimes how much a smaller show can be even more beneficial sometimes. You're going to get a lot of volume at the larger one, but you might have better conversations at a smaller one. So
yeah, because you have the same. I mean,
is my point. You kind of, don't shy away from that, a smaller show, thinking that you're not going to, because they still have a lot of people that come through.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I agree as a client, the smaller shows, you may only be able to talk to, 3 wedding planners rather than 7. But I mean, still, when it comes down to it, you really do get more out of that. So when we talk about what to expect, there, you've done a couple videos and stuff, and I know that we're going to be doing some live streams and some interviews at the one that's coming up this weekend.
Yeah.
But I don't think people are really prepared for when you walk down an aisle. Sometimes there's like you're not moving.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of the times it's like Rachel Bakes or City Barbecue because they're giving out delicious food. Everyone's kind of but there's still some fantastic there. You have the opportunity to go the other direction, but there are some traffic jams there that it's a lot of people, a lot of stuff going on. I guess is what I'm saying.
Right. There is. And like I said, I just really recommend, don't feel like you have to wait. Try to get around, because there's usually a back row, or a row that's further away and they don't have as much traffic. So really, make an effort to get there. It's just going to save you a lot of time also if you can do that. And you can always come back the other way, and end up hitting the vendors that you missed on the way out.
So when it comes to vendors, there is different approaches from a vendor side of how you make an impression on a client or when you come in, but from a client side of things, how do you suggest they go about choosing a vendor? I mean, let's say that there are, and let's not use photography, because photography is one of those things where you do have like you can look at pictures and go, this is good, this is not good. And not to say that there's not that personal aspect, but let's say a service, oriented, you're like looking for an officiant or you're looking for a wedding planner. How do you quantify how good a wedding planner is? I mean, it's solely a service business. I mean, or we're playing Bruno Mars in the background. That means we're cool, but how do you really know what we're going to be like at your wedding? What's your recommendations for couples when they are choosing a vendor at a wedding show? Because a wedding show is different. When you have a consultation, you're there for an extended period of time. A wedding show, you're talking 2 minutes or so that you have to really, make a connection. What's your suggestions?
Well, again, I think it's when you're talking to them, the conversation you're having with them, ask questions about what they do, maybe what packages they have, what their costs are, see how they respond to you, see how the conversation's going. And then also I would check out, make sure you check out references, get their information, and be sure afterwards, go to their Instagram page, go to their website, take a look at and see what does it look like, how long have they been in business, and, what types of weddings have they done, and could they do the type of wedding that I would want? So I think, again, it's just really asking questions and really giving the vendor information on what you want. Make sure you're telling them what you're looking for, what you want at your wedding, maybe what style, what theme, if you know that, if they know that. That's what I would recommend.
What if you don't really know?
If you don't know, and sometimes I think too, people think they know, and I think they should keep an open mind too, because there's so many different options. Then that's just, again, it's just a thing where they're going to have to explore, and they're going to have to really, sometimes a wedding show for some couples at the very beginning, it's just a matter of like, I need some ideas. I need to get started. I might not book vendors right now, but I want to come here because I really want to see what there is. And then I think it's just somebody stands out to them, or a vendor stands out because of either the way their booth looks, the conversation they had. It can be various things, but sometimes, I think they really don't know, and they are there just to get some information and get some inspiration for what they do want. Yeah. So you have a mix. It's a mix of, I know exactly what I want, and I'm coming here. Or there's like, I have no idea. I had a good friend, she told me, she went to a wedding show. She had no idea what she wanted. Wasn't into planning either. And she said she went to the wedding show and just thought she booked everything. She's like, I just did it and I was done. So you have people like that too, who are like, you know what? I I have so much to do in my life. I work, I do this. I don't really want to take a lot of times. And oh my gosh, this place has everything. So I could really get this done and knock it out. So, that's another good thing about a wedding show, because you can just make sure. I still highly recommend that you check out references for the vendors, like I said, their Instagrams, their social media, because sometimes there'll be vendors there that don't, have as much experience. Not that they're bad, but you just want to make sure they're going to be able to fulfill what you want for your wedding.
Yeah, that's good advice. And I think I think there are different philosophies when it comes to what type of shopper you are. I am the type of shopper that I want to research and collect more and research and then go back and ask more questions and research. That's the type of person. I am not the book on the spot type of person, and therefore Legacy Event Group is not geared that way either. We're very like, here we'll have a free consultation if you want later on. We can talk to you about packages. We can book it here today if you want, but we're not going to push you to. But it's great that you have that opportunity. Is the thing that would keep you in your lane for purchasing, for like how you go about things, because I think some couples connect from, whether it be like and I very rarely see people, sometimes, but very rarely see people just sit down and just talk about stuff, just like go through brochures, like sit down at a chair at a table and go through stuff and go, didn't like that person, like this person, let's second this person, let's go ask this person. And that, having more time, I think is a very great recommendation. But then secondarily, it would be having that little round table before you leave.
Right.
And going, what's the next steps for some of these people? Because if not, you walk out with just a bag of a lot of ideas, a lot of inspiration, and a lot of flyers, or business cards.
And then you're like, yeah, what do I do? No, yeah, they all work differently. So it's hard to, say one way's a good way, and then everybody has a different time frame they're on too. So I think that's what's difficult, for a vendor, because you're trying to relate to all the different couples coming through. But yeah, if they would sit down and take the time to look through things, I know they would realize how much more valuable that time was spent if they would take more time talking and going, even like you said, going back to the ones that they liked and asking some more questions
or follow-up questions. A lot, and this is to couples that are going to wedding shows. I like challenging questions. I like, and sometimes I don't get all the challenging questions because we're often the sponsors for the Claiborne shows. So I'm doing the coordination for the runway shows and things like that, and handing out the door prizes. There's all kinds of door prizes all the time. We're handing out some this weekend, right? So door prizes for that too. But so a lot of times I'm doing the coordination of that and not able to just kind of be at the booth. But it hurts my heart when when someone comes up and goes, I need a DJ, and they have absolutely no questions in their mind of what that means, or what. And I know from working in the industry how much this all costs, and I also know how one vendor can affect everything that you do, your entire wedding.
Right.
And so I would really appreciate some good questions, some like prep questions where someone comes up and goes, when someone asks you a question, you're like, that's a really good, I don't have to think about that for a minute. That's a really good question. Thank you for asking me that question, because are there any questions like that you can think of that you would ask a vendor, or that, that would really give you the worth of the vendor themselves? Like, and again, cake's different. You can taste a cake. You can be like,
the taste. Yeah. You mean like for like a DJ?
Yeah, a DJ or a wedding planner, even photographer, because you can see a photographer's pictures. You're right, but I don't think people realize how much you have to interact with a photographer.
Right.
The whole day.
For a DJ, I'd probably want to know their experience, and like, if I use your company, who am I getting? Am I getting you? Am I getting, are there different levels? And then also, how do you handle a wedding? How does it work? Like, what do I do? Do I give you the music? Do I give you a list? Do you just play what you want? That kind of thing is what I'd want to know, like, from a DJ.
Yeah.
And then I know your company does it, and I think it's important. Like, are you going to be the one that's like in charge and making sure we're on a timeline, at the wedding? Because I think that's, I don't think brides and grooms always think of that. And I think it's an important thing, because you're just lost if you don't have somebody, running that for you.
Yeah.
And handling it, coordinating it all.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that's a very, that is the side of things that I don't think a lot of couples realize too, is no matter how good your vendors are, if your timeline has fallen apart,
right,
your vendors mattereth not.
Right.
We can be the best DJs ever, but if we're an hour behind schedule and they've not been fed on time, and they're haven't had, when we open up the dance floor, people are going to be like, I'm out of here. And that's a reality. One of the great questions that I got, I don't remember when it was, but the couple said, let's say everything's going wrong and no one's dancing, and what are you going to do to get us back on schedule? And I thought that's you hate to feel like that. You don't want to tell people like things could go wrong at your wedding.
Yeah.
But the reality of it is things could go wrong at your wedding. And that was a good, realistic question that made me go, what do we do? And it's really, really important. But I think that's the side of having a timeline in mind with every vendor you choose, I think is a great suggestion also.
Yeah. Because you don't realize that you're there, you're enjoying the wedding, you're not thinking about it, but everybody else is, like you said, when are we eating? When are they cutting the cake? What is this? So, and, not that you want to make sure your crowd is the ones being pleased, but you do. And that's kind of, they do walk away from your wedding saying like, wow, that was really, everything was organized. Everything was really good. And so I think it's really important. I think a lot of times people just don't think of that, how much organization there is the day of, and making sure that someone's doing that for you, because you don't want to do it as a bride and groom.
And how much we as vendors all connect into each other as far as getting it done.
Yes.
We were at the Dayton Art Institute last week, and we were working with Cars Photography and Kohler Catering, and we had a timeline faux pas where it was like we were basically 30 to 40 minutes behind schedule. And we just got our heads together, and having that vendor team, we were back on schedule just like that. And again, it's not something that people think about when they choose their vendors, but I think it's something that is a very realistic, good line of questioning that you can ask someone at a wedding show. Like, what if we're behind schedule? What do you do to get us back on schedule?
Right. And probably who worries about that more than the bride and groom or the parents, parents of the bride and groom.
Yeah.
They're the ones I think too, that are going to be like, what's going on? Why isn't this? So and you want to make them happy too. So.
At a wedding show, we do have the dynamic is very, where there's couples there and there's also parents there, and you can definitely see the question differences between a couple and the parents as far as like the questions they ask, and the meaning behind the questions that they ask.
Right. Yes. Yeah, the parents want to make sure that everything's going to get done, and it's going to get done on time and at the right time too. They have a set schedule in their head as well. So
at a wedding show, you're going to be able to talk to vendors. You're going to be able to see. Tell me about a little about the runway show. And I know the runway show is on hold, or it's different. I think. Yeah, because they were walking around at the last one. So
Yes.
tell me about the runway show, or how that works and what that looks like.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, right now it's on hold just because of COVID, because lack of space and having to seat people, too far away, or we have to space them out too much. But normally we have 2 runway shows at a one-day show. So we'll have them at 2 different times, so the people who get there earlier can see it. And then if you come later, there's another one. And it's usually one gown sponsor that will provide all the gowns. They do bridal gowns. They'll do bridesmaids dresses, and it's about 25 to 30 minutes long. We try not to keep it too long because we want you to talk to the vendors. And it just shows the latest styles and trends of all the dresses. And then also there's usually a men's formal wear sponsor as well, showing different styles of men's formal wear. But it's nice because a lot of times, some of the girls have their dresses, some of them don't. Some don't have their bridesmaids dresses. So it gives them a really good idea of what these dresses look like on a girl. And we have, all sizes of models that are modeling them. So they really like to see that. It's one of the big attractions. I know sometimes the vendors are like, why is there fashion shows? It takes up all the time. But I can tell you, when we have a fashion show, and when I communicate with the brides, it's a lot of times it's one of the main questions I get: is there going to be a fashion show? Is there going to be a fashion show? So they really like that. Again, it's the live aspect of it. Seeing them walk in the dresses, seeing how they look.
And there's different styles and stuff too, right? I remember like some are gowns and some are like I'm totally my inexperience about gowns here. There's like 2 gowns, right? There's like the gown you get married in, and then sometimes there's a secondary gown.
Oh yeah, sometimes people will do that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So sometimes they'll wear one at the church, and then they'll change for the reception.
Yeah, or right before they do dancing and stuff like that. I forget. Yeah. I saw the last one that we did. You could tell it was like still a wedding, but it was a different kind of feel because wedding dresses are, I think, and this is just from my years in the wedding dresses, are kind of hard to move around. So I think people want that loosened up. So there's a lot of other styles other than just wedding gowns too, I guess is what my point is.
Well, not even that. The brides girls who are wearing dresses, they like to change. It's just, they love it. Oh, I can wear 2 or 3 dresses. Yeah, the more the merrier. That's just, I think that's another aspect to it too. So I think it's great. I think it's a great idea because, like you said, the big ball gown, they walk down, and sometimes they're very hard. When they make that change, and again, it draws attention to them. So it's what they want that day, and they should. But it's great to see the difference. There's even pantsuits that are out now.
Yeah.
So.
And also, I know you had said it, but I want to reiterate it. I also like that there's all different sizes, all different styles, and the models have a good time.
They love it. And since we haven't done the fashion show, they've been doing the strolling. And, I interact with them afterwards. I'm like, how do you feel about that? Are you guys uncomfortable? And they're like, we love it, because they talk to them. So they talk to the brides. The brides will ask them questions. Where's this from? And how's it feel? Is it comfortable to walk in? So they like that interaction with the brides as well.
Interesting. Okay, that's cool. Yeah, I can see that. Yeah. You actually kind of better look at it too, because normally the runway shows are up on a stage or up on a a platform as they go around. So that way you actually kind of get to walk around the entire thing and look at it. That's cool. Yeah. And shout out to Chester from New View.
New View, yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah.
I have a video of him. I don't know if I ever showed it to you, but he's behind the scene, behind the curtain. He's like releasing the models. It was I forget the name of the song. Anyways, he was dancing behind the curtain. So it's like from the client side of things, they're just seeing the wedding show happen, and I was going back and forth and getting and he was back there just like getting down.
Oh yeah.
I
They're
was like,
always dancing in the back. Getting warmed up. Yeah. They have a lot of fun, and they're very professional. They do a great job. We've worked with them since we started. We've used them ever since we started. So
awesome.
yeah.
So the other thing that happens at some wedding shows is going to be like seminars and things like that.
Yeah.
And if you were to ever do a wedding gown seminar, how to bustle a dress would save us so much time at weddings because that is the single most time-consuming project at a wedding is how to bustle. Yeah, there's always like 3 or 4 people under there, like A goes to B or A goes to A or A goes to I don't know. So, but you
I'll
do seminars.
I'll never forget my wedding. They bustled me, and it was a total mess. I walked out, and I was like, somebody took a picture, and like, what did you do? Yeah, they need to make that easier.
They do, yeah.
They need to find just a way to just like whoop, put it up.
One button, like that Back to the Future where you had that jacket.
Yeah, like, it's hard, but yeah, if they could just do that.
If you did a seminar, though, I think at least you'd be able to like lift the dress, because nobody wants to like lift the dress up and like check it out beforehand. But I mean, lift the dress up and go, this is how you bustled. And I'm sure they show them at the gown place. But
yeah,
sooner or later we're going to have a somebody that does gowns on. And I'm going to be like, we're going to show how to bustle right now. Grab a dress. We're doing it right now.
Got 5 minutes.
But one of the things that you do is seminars. So tell me a little about the seminars and what the seminars and they change. But just talk about you and what the thought behind those are.
Yeah, we'll have some mini seminars so that some of the companies can educate people a little bit more in depth on what they do. Like a good one is the honeymoons. Some of our travel people will do like mini seminars. And it's just if you're really looking for honeymoon and you can sit down for like 10 to 15 minutes, they can give you a lot more information just talking to you, one-on-one they usually do it in their booth or around the stage area. Another one's like DIY flowers, just to explain a little more in depth exactly, what they do, what they offer. And again, I have found that a lot of the brides and grooms too, they like to be, they like to get the knowledge. They like someone to tell them and give them more in depth. So we have found the seminars to be very, very successful. And people will sit down and they'll take the time to listen.
The flower one I thought was really interesting, and we usually provide sound for them or kind of help them out with a microphone and have them on the side. So I would see more of that, but I don't think we say this a lot, but people don't know what they don't know. So I think sometimes that seminar helps bring together, like, you see a bouquet on the table, but how does it get to that point? How do you? And so they kind of show you step by step on how not just trends, but if you want to do this, you can do this, or we can help you. And so I think the flower seminar was educational for me. So
yeah, I think people think there's no way I could make that. They say that because that's what the Flower Man offers is a DIY, and I think a bride looks at like, I couldn't do that. But when they see the seminar and they watch her do it so easily in like 10 minutes, then they realize, okay, if she's there showing me, because they will have a coach there, and yeah. So like you said, then they're like, okay, I think I could do it.
Well, because it's repetition too. You talk about like, if you can do it once, then can you do it 9 more times? So, if you have a coach going, that's how you do it. I'll do it 9 more times and save a little bit of money and kind of have, I see a little bit of pride in couples' eyes when they create something like that and they set it out. And so, I think the seminars are really cool.
More of them. It's just when you have that many vendors, it's hard. So you try to pick ones that, people that we know the brides and grooms, need more knowledge on too.
Right. Yeah.
The ones we've had a great response from.
And I think, and we talked a little bit about, some of the things that may be in the future of the wedding shows. And I think that, collecting people's preferences afterwards, or, an exit survey of like, what would you like to see more of? And what would you like to, so if you are going to a wedding show, voice your opinion, because I think that would help drive seminars and more things. And with the wedding industry being the way it is, you hopefully don't get married more than once, or so,
Right?
so it's not like you're going to be like, I need to make this wedding show better the next time. But just think about, for people in the future, we always ask for feedback at the end. What could we do better? So if you do go to a wedding show and you would like to see that, stop at the front desk and say, let them know what you would like to see in the future. So,
and we'll have a lot of people stop on their way out, and they'll tell us, hey, this was great, loved this, liked that. We do. A lot of them will give us some feedback. Okay. Another thing I forgot to mention, I was going to mention, when you're at the show, we're talking to the vendors, but you only have a short amount of time to set up appointments, with the brides and grooms. And then the brides and grooms, that's a good question with you to come in.
Our opinion, and like I said, it's different for every person, every couple, every vendor, we do not book a lot at wedding shows. We don't push to book a lot at wedding shows, because we feel like, you should compare, and you should go home and check us out on social media, and you should see if we're the right person and stuff. So we don't push that, but
right.
Any next step is something that I think is a good suggestion to be able to. So we've got prepare and plan ahead. We've got stay longer.
Longer. Keep an open mind.
Keep an open mind. And then next steps.
And take a next step. Right.
Yeah. So we got 4, like, this is what you should do for a wedding show. I feel like we should come up with a 5th, just because I think they're supposed to have 5 for everything that's recommended. But
have fun.
Have fun. Yes. Well, this next topic might be the number 5. Door prizes.
Door prizes, yeah.
So there are door prizes at almost
everybody gives them to me, but there's a good amount.
Okay. How do we give them away? I know this, so I'm asking this too. But how do we give them away at the show? As far as like, if I'm at the show, how do I win? Or do I have to be there the whole time? Or how's that work for just the door prize? Actually, no, door prizes and grand prize. We'll talk about both.
Yeah, the door prizes. Well, everybody gets a sticker when they come in. And it's one number per couple. So each couple will get a number, and that's your door prize number. So if we call that number out throughout the day, then you would win a door prize. And then for the grand prize, we used to give it away and you had to be present to win. But because of COVID, not everybody can stay, and we don't want everybody to stay the time. So we give that away, and then we announce that on we'll call you if you win. Again, it'll be pulled from the numbers that you get. And then we'll list it on Facebook and Instagram also.
I didn't think about this, but maybe us wanting people to stay longer is, remember when we used to give away door prizes, and we would be up there like announcing numbers for like ever.
Yeah.
We were like, we got to do something different here. If people stayed longer, all those door prizes would go to the people that were actually there. It would be so phenomenal.
Right. Yes.
So maybe it's self-serving why we want you to stay longer.
I always feel like there's this, I want people to stay longer, but I also want people who can't stay long to come. I don't want them to feel like, oh, I have to stay for 4 hours. Mm-hmm. Because you don't, and you can get a lot out of it. And if you're looking for certain things, so it's kind of, if you're planning a wedding, we would just like you to come out and check it out. And I think, if you think maybe you don't have time, but you get there and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm staying, staying longer. But,
yeah, it's kind of like an amusement park, really. I mean, we have gone to an amusement park and we've hit all the high notes, and then we've been like, okay, we're going to go ahead and go today because we got something else to do, or, we got a meeting or something that we're, but there's also times where we went to the amusement park and we went back to the same ride 5 or 6 times, or we went, I'm going to go try. I know my son loves it for the cake. I mean, because because you can always go back and get a different flavor cake.
Yes.
So, but you know, sometimes you have that. So yeah, I think like we said in the beginning, everyone's on their own journey.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of people, if they have the time, would benefit from staying longer.
Yes.
And kind of making it more of an experience, you know.
Right. Definitely.
So let's say that they don't do what we said they don't follow maxim number 3, which is follow up, or maybe it was 4 follow up. Say they don't follow up. You get home, you know, you have what's the next step from a wedding show? So, and you and I have had conversation about this. So we that's one of the reasons I think we're going to do some interviews and things like that live, but also have recorded. But let's say that you get home and you throw it out on the table. It's Halloween time for the wedding, and you dump out the bag, and you know, what's the next steps if you're a client, if you're a couple and you're getting married and you just came home from a wedding show?
Well, I would organize it based on, you know, the different categories. So here's my photographers, here's my cake, you know, here's the venues we have. And then what I would probably do is go through, see if any of them, oh yes, I remember them, I liked them. Then I'd probably get on, look at the website again, check out the Instagram, you know, kind of do some more research with the information that you have and get a better idea, you know. And then if you see, like, okay, I'd really like to go see that. I'd really like to go see that venue, or I'd really like to have a tasting with the venue. Then contact them. You usually have the person's name on the card or the information they gave you, and say, hey, I met you at the wedding show, and I you know, remember you, or I checked you out, and I'd like to come and meet with you. So that's what I would do. I would just organize it all by category, you know, like I said, check them out some more, do some more research, and then set up a time to meet with them.
You know, it wasn't until you were saying, like, you know, organize. I've heard couples say, and I didn't know what it meant at the time, but put that in the good bag.
Oh, okay.
I think some couples have like 2 different bags to kind of separate, like, and that's a great idea, you know, as far as like making sure that these are the top 5, or, you know, if I'm actually looking for these. And so, yeah, I put them in the good bag. I never knew that.
Yeah, or you can, sometimes they'll mark stuff on it too, you know, or make sure they star it, or, and then put it in so they know, so they remember. Yeah,
we actually have.
It's funny, we'll have some people come out too and even ask us about the vendors, to be nice to us. No, but we do. It's funny because they'll be like, oh, do you know this one, or do you know that one? I mean, I know most of our vendors very well. So, and like, I usually always tell them, you need to set up a meeting with each one and, you know, make your decision.
Yeah, but I think I was talking to Jenna about this last week. I think that you and like Jenna know vendors better than what I think. The art of being a photographer or a cake decorator, it's important, but who you are really behind, I think, guides a lot of that. And if your talent is there and you have 4 people that have the same talent or similar talent, that the who you are, the ethics, the person that's behind that company means more than anything.
Right.
And so you could probably.
No, you're right. I always say I could. Jenna knows probably way more in depth than I do, because she deals with them. I don't go to weddings. I just do the wedding. But I do. There's times where I'm like, I should be a wedding planner, because I know these people so well, and I could really tell these brides something. But no, we do. We do get to know them, and that's one thing too. There's, you know, you want to get to know them, and I want to have good quality vendors at the show also. I think it's important.
Yeah. So last couple questions are going to be specifically about the booths and stuff like that. So do you have any preferences? And this is, if you're a client, you can probably check out right now, because this is going to be, this is just something I've always wondered, what's the best booth design? What's the pros and cons of a booth design? I've always wondered this, because as we talked about in the beginning, we've changed our booth 100 times, and
right.
Unfortunately, I haven't kept one long enough to be able to be like, this one's the right one.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, got to redesign it, got to do something new.
Right.
What do you suggest? So we have some people that are standing out with clipboards ready to collect your information. We have some people that have a table behind them. We have some people that are kind of off to the side. What's your suggestion? What works best? What's the...
Sure. And again, I think it's very industry specific, because I think, a photographer is different than a cake vendor, et cetera. But definitely, I think an open booth, and opening the booth up and bringing people into your booth, get them out of the aisle, make sure it's open so that they can come in, stand, and you can talk to them for a few minutes. I think that's a big thing. If you're a cake vendor, you're going to want to have, a lot of samples of your work and what you do. I almost think it's more important than the actual samples itself. Because again, people are visual. Sometimes it's like, they want to see that. Photography, again, have samples of your photography. Now if you're a videographer, it's interesting, because I just had a videographer ask me, well, what do I put in my booth? I see these elaborate booth displays. I'm a videographer. Like, am I going to build walls and, put decor up? And I said, now for you need to have a big TV and show your video. To me, that, and I don't know that you need much more. Just make sure they can come in and talk to you and have space. But then, like a decor company, of course, I think, show some different samples of the decor that you do. So, but yeah, to me, the biggest thing in a booth is just having it open, bringing them in. The nicer you can make it, the prettier, something interesting, or if it's on trend for what's going on, they're definitely interested in that. And that stops them and, makes them take a look at you. So those would be my best suggestions.
Okay. And have stroller parking, I think, would be a good suggestion too. One stroller can block an entire aisle. So
yeah.
I think having an open booth, that way you can bring a stroller in there and just like,
we could have wider aisles. Yeah. Be nice.
Well, so thank you for taking the time to sit down and talk, and I really appreciate it.
Sure.
We are going to be doing some videos and stuff. I mentioned a few times, but this weekend at the show on Sunday. Yeah. So we're going to be going live and kind of just doing some interviews and kind of walking around and kind of showing people at home what the wedding show looks like. But there is there's nothing that can replace being there. So we're going to try to get it out there. That way we can let people know how beneficial it is, with some mini interviews and things like that. But like the things that we've talked about today, I don't think you can't get that without going to the show. You can't get the type of interaction and the type of experience without going to the show. So I'm sure you agree.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. Well,
that show's in Cincinnati. I don't know if we mentioned that.
I don't think so. Manor House,
Cincinnati, right? Manor House, on Sunday, the 18th. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And where do we go for future shows? Let's say someone's watching this next year, because our plan is to take kind of this video and kind of promote it each wedding season when it comes to people booking. That way they have kind of a clear. So let's say that this is next year. Where do they go?
So they can go to our website, ohioweddingshows.com, and we list all our shows and dates there. Okay.
And reservations going to be a little bit different probably for each show. So just go there for more information.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Like for the shows coming up, we have arrival times that they sign up for so that everybody's not coming at one time.
Okay.
But for our future shows, we may not have to do that.
We won't have to do that.
Yeah. The vendors are enjoying. They like it because it's first day.
It's kind of nice too from a vendor aspect because we've been like, I know I came up to you and I was like, how many people do we have coming in? And you're like, you told me, and I'm like, okay, Brandon, now's your chance to go to the bathroom. And
Right. You know, yes.
the next wave's coming, so get ready.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Well, Tracy, thank you very much.
Yeah, well, thank you.
We'll see you this weekend. And for anybody else, check out the website, check out your Ohio wedding shows.
Yeah, thanks a lot.